Hey, boils and ghouls, it's me, Krystale Noir, your friendly ghoulie ghoul next door, and I'm here on behalf of iHorror to sit down and talk spooks with creative director and co-founder of Midsummer Scream, Rick West. Rick, how are you?
I'm good.
You're good?
Good,
Good.
thanks.
How's your summer going thus far? Are we super busy doing Midsummer Scream prep? And can you share with us what exactly Midsummer Scream is and your critical part you play in this mega SoCal spooky event?
Wow, a nice, easy answer to begin with. Okay. Well, first of all, summer's going well. It's hot, so I basically don't go out until after the sun goes down. Um, Midsummer Scream is the shorthand is it's the Comic Con of Halloween and horror, right? So take anything that you would expect to see at a Comic Con, slug Halloween and horror in there, and there you go. It is the world's largest Halloween and horror convention. This will be our 7th year doing it.
Amazing.
We attract over 50,000 people from all over the world.
Ooh, we love that.
Come to Midsummer, and it's just a celebration of all things spooky.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
like a spooky summer camp, if you will.
It's great.
I've heard that before.
A lot of people say it's their absolute favorite weekend out of the whole year. So, yeah. So in preparation of Midsummer Scream, it's kind of an ongoing thing. It's not like, oh, okay, the show's going to come up in 6 months. We better start working on it.
Yeah.
It's about an 18-month runway. So like this year, even though we're still a couple weeks out,
Yeah.
for all intents and purposes, 2024 is done. It's in the bag.
Yeah.
I'm already working on stuff. I'm already putting together Hall of Shadows attractions for next year. Like my mind is already
on 2025.
Yeah, this one's already wrapped and done.
Yeah.
We're at this point, we basically are just making sure that it doesn't go off the rails.
Sure.
We all get to Long Beach. Everybody gets there in one piece. Doors open on time, and guests are well taken care of. But as far as the creative work and all like the prep and all that, that's pretty much that's done at this point.
That's good.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's basically at that point where it's like now you're just like, what will happen? What will happen? All the
Yeah.
prep you've done and everything that went into it, it gets to just come to fruition and just like you said, hope everything goes smoothly, nothing falls off the rails.
Yeah. At this point, we're just kind of, we guide it along. And we just make sure that everything is where it's supposed to be. We're dotting I's, crossing T's, just hand holding the process.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah.
Is there like a sense of relief when it's like that weekend and doors open?
I would say that there's probably a sense of relief. I can't speak for anybody else on the team, but I'm to the point where at this point, years ago when this was still fresh and new, I would be having anxiety dreams at this point.
Oh,
Yeah.
Oh,
Like the doors are opening, we're not done with stuff, or the doors are opening, Hall of Shadows isn't ready. I haven't had any of that this time around.
Oh, good.
And so it's just, I kind of let my guard down by the time like Saturday is over. Like between Saturday, end of day, and the beginning of our party Saturday night.
Yeah.
That's kind of where I am like, okay, now it's all kind of easy. Now, that said, on Sunday, I have a panel that I host.
Yeah.
And so, leading up to that, but even that is like kind of old hat. It's not like, oh my God, I'm so nervous I could throw up. It's just like, okay, it's going to be great. I'm talking to friends on stage.
Yeah.
And once that's done, literally, like anytime that I have a panel that I do, I'm kind of laser focused on that.
Sure.
Whenever that might fall in the weekend. Once that point is done with, it's just kind of like, okay, we're coasting now across the finish line.
Yeah, nice.
Sure.
Okay. Let's rewind a bit and learn more about the origin of how your love for spookiness started. Was it your first experience attending a haunt? Was it when you were a little wee Rick West, or something you stumbled across as an adult?
Well, we're going to go back to the early 70s and me trick-or-treating in the Inland Empire with my grandfather. Grew up my first few years in Rialto, California. And it was just kind of like, okay, this is Halloween. This is cool. I go get candy for free and I eat it. That's all kids. That's like their first aha moment with Halloween, right? But I was really drawn to, and I've said this a million times, I was drawn to the one house on every block that had the spooky music playing, and more than, just the light on with somebody standing out there handing out candy. I wanted to find like the one house that had the red light, or the dummy sitting on the porch, and maybe the a few props in the yard, special effects for back then, for home haunts.
Yeah.
And I really got switched onto that. There was something that was just like, whoa, this is what I really like. And of course, I was really little, so there was no way to like explain, what that was. And certainly the term home haunt was not a thing that I would even know about for decades after that.
Sure.
But then, yeah, I mean, as a kid, when my grandfather would take me to like the March of Dimes haunted house or whatever, I loved it. And everybody realized very quickly, well, he's not scared of any of this stuff.
Yeah.
Because I hear people, even like today, I listen to different podcasts and people say, oh my God, they still scare me. And I'm like, that never, like, even as a little kid, I realized these are big kids.
Yeah.
Or when you're a little kid, everybody's an adult. These are adults, in costumes. This is a haunted house. That's why it's called a haunted house.
Yes.
So I always knew that it was like just fun, spooky
Yeah.
fun. And so I loved that. And then at the same time, then I, found things like Carpenter's Halloween as a little kid, and my grandparents let me watch that on HBO.
Yes,
and
classic.
I loved all that stuff, right? And then when in the early 80s, we're jumping up a decade, in the early 80s, a church group from Irvine took us to this thing called Not Scary Farm.
Oh.
And so the greatest thing I ever learned from church was Not Scary Farm. We all jumped in the youth group van, went to Buena Park, got out. There was fog flowing over the gate onto La Palma. I could hear people screaming, and we walked into Ghost Town, and it was just like, oh my God, this is the trip to Mecca for us. This is like the best thing I've ever seen in my entire freaking life. And from there, it just kind of perpetuated into me seeking out different haunt events. And of course, more and more haunted houses came online. And then I started becoming more aware of people doing their own home haunts. And I always gravitated to the home haunts because I just associated that most closely with my childhood, with trick-or-treating with my grandfather. And that has still remained all these years later. Now we're jumping a lot of decades ahead. That's my favorite aspect of Halloween still, are visiting the home haunts.
Yeah. They're just magical.
Yeah.
And what you were saying about pulling up to Not Scary Farm, I always feel like, I'm like, I wish they can just like bottle this up in like a candle. Like that scent and that feeling. Like, I'm like, I wish Yankee Candle needs to come out with Not Scary Farm. Like the scent of that fog and walking in there.
The scent of fear.
Yes. Well, yeah, I love that. Great story.
Yeah.
I love it. So did these experiences going through haunts and going to haunts lead you into theme park adventure? Also, can you tell us exactly what is TPA and how long did it run its course?
Sure. So when I was out of high school in the late 80s, I started working at Disneyland as a cast member. And I worked at Pirates of the Caribbean and Haunted Mansion, amongst a few other things. And I really, really fell in love with, I grew up going to theme parks. From the age of about 2, my grandfather would take me to every park within driving distance here in Southern California.
Okay.
That included Santa's Village up in the mountains, all the way to Marineland of the Pacific, to, of course, Knott's Berry Farm, Disneyland, and down to San Diego, and hey, Lion Country Safari, which was in Orange County.
I love that.
So made the rounds all the time doing this stuff. And so when I graduated high school in 1988, I knew immediately that I wanted to work at Disneyland. And that was it. And that's what happened. And I fell in love with, when you're hired as a cast member, they tell you, you're going to lose some of the magic now because you're going to see how everything is done. For me, it was the exact opposite. It really switched me on to, oh my God, the real magic in it. Real magic is how they make all this work.
Yeah.
Right. That is what really, really got into my blood and excited me about Disneyland. And so when I was at Disneyland, I actually was tapped to work on a couple different, there was a cast member publication that I wrote for, and then a friend of mine had a Disney publication. Remember, this is all before social media.
Yeah.
Everything is in print at this point. And so I started writing for that, and people really liked the way that I wrote about my adventures as a cast member. And I then realized one night, this is fun doing this, but I like everything. I like roller coasters. I like the zoo. I like Las Vegas. They were building Luxor, at the time. And I thought, this is something that I want to really, share my love with the entire spectrum of all this stuff. And so that's basically how Theme Park Adventure was created. It was me stepping out, wanting to do something that people weren't already doing.
Yeah.
So I created that. It started as a newsletter in print. This was 1994. Then it moved on and it became part of a BBS system, which that's a whole other discussion for another time. Older people listening to this, they'll know what a BBS was. And then, the internet came along and just slowly it kind of spilled onto the internet. And there was a time when I was doing print stuff and internet stuff. And then it all went internet. And 24 years later, I retired TPA because I started working in the themed entertainment industry. And I was starting to do work with like Universal and these different companies. And when you're dealing with proprietary information and NDA stuff, it kind of is super, super awkward to say, oh, and by the way, I have this fan site online. Yeah. It kind of doesn't match, 100%. Right? So, so that was, the writing was on the wall. And it was just time. And everybody then suddenly was a vlogger. Everybody had their own social media presence. What TPA wasn't, it wasn't special anymore. Everybody was doing it. Yeah. And so the Halloween component to TPA, because that was certainly a huge part of it, just was born out of my love for the events, like Not Scary Farm, right? Yeah. So I made friends at Not Scary Farm that were the veterans of the event in Ghost Town. And they said, hey, you know what? We really like what you're doing. Come hang out with us at our private parties. Oh, nice. And I was kind of really taken under the wing at that point. That's cool. And nobody had written like in-depth articles about, Haunt or anything like that at Knott's. And, it was something that Knott's did not immediately embrace. At the beginning, they were like, I was actually told, if you interview anybody and publish names, that person will be reprimanded and or fired. Wow. They were not open at all to people writing articles about Scary Farm, which is so weird, right? Yeah. Like, cause now everybody talks about it year round, right? And vloggers, that's all people talk about. Exactly. So a lot of those things, I kind of blazed trails with that. I remember sitting in their marketing office saying, hey, would you mind if I like posted pictures of haunt construction? And it was like I was talking Greek. They were like, why would anybody care about haunt construction? I'm sure, yeah. And now you can't imagine not seeing everybody covering construction, whether it's at Universal or at Knott's or their home haunts or anything, right? So I was ahead of the curve on that, And so it just kind of, my love for everything Halloween kind of spilled over into my platform, which was TPA. Yeah. So everybody kind of got an extra dose of spooky through that. And I started covering everything from home haunts to the major theme park events. And so I would say probably towards the end, of the 24-year run, it was very, very Halloween top heavy, Yeah. And that's the way it was because TPA was always a reflection of me, of what I liked sharing with everybody. And, Halloween was a huge, huge love of mine. And so that just inevitably merged all together.
Oh, I love that. Like organically just merged. Yeah. Man, I just love hearing too. Like you were a blogger before there was bloggers. Essentially, you really paved the way.
Yeah, I remember the first time that people started saying, "Oh, you're a blog. You're a blog," and I used to be really offended by that. Yeah. I was like, "No, I'm a webmaster." Yeah. Because back then it was a webmaster. It was the website, and blogging was just like that was like people dabbling in what I do, type of thing. And so, blogger, that became vlogger. Yeah. And now that's YouTuber. Now it's influencer, type of thing. So sure, whatever works. I was all of that.
Yeah. Well, you're the OG of all of that. So that's really cool.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing that background.
Of course.
So this may or may not be a toughie, but what is your all-time favorite haunt that you attended? And what is your most viewed video on TPA in the TPA Chronicles, and why do you think that is?
Okay, so this is the answer that is always asked, and it may sound like a cop out, but it's like there's no like favorite, right? Like I loved everything. Like I love when people just go out of their way to put decorations in their front yard versus $1 million maze at a theme park. I
Yeah.
love all of it. There are certain aspects of certain things that I really, really love. Like for me, I like spooky ambiance way more than over the top gore.
Yeah.
Always have, always will. Um, I tend to like things that are very like cemetery, like gothic, spooky cemetery type thing, or Old West. Those are themes that I
Love
really,
that.
really love, right? But people have aliens, outer space mazes,
Yeah.
and the inbred swamp people mazes and things like that. I mean, it's fine, but there are certain things that I do like better,
Yeah.
the way that they're executed. The OG of home haunts was Gary Korb's Hallowed Haunting Grounds in Studio City. He had that for almost 35 years.
Wow.
And that was like the OG, like, oh my God, home haunt when you went to see that. I really miss that. There was there was a there was a brilliant home haunt out in Santa Monica called the House of Restless Spirits that was done in and around this guy's house, and basically you would literally walk the perimeter of his house and you'd peer in through the windows and see spooky little scenes. There was a tool shed in the back, and you could hear like a blacksmith hammering, and the door was cracked open just enough that you could one at a time
Oh,
peer through,
cool.
and then in the darkness you would see this ghostly apparition of this old blacksmith like materialize
That's cool.
and look at you and then vanish again. Or there would be, tombstones in the yard where you literally, if you stood there for 10 minutes staring at a tombstone, you would see it over the period of 10 or 15 minutes slowly change, like the lettering or whatever,
Oh,
like
wow.
super, super subtle details that were just unbelievable, fantastic. I like that. I really like that kind of thing, as opposed to jump scare. Jump scares don't work on me. I'm pretty dead inside at this point. And so anytime I'm going through a haunt, people are always like, "Roar!" And I'm like looking at something. You can tell they're like, Jesus, okay, what's wrong with this guy? Or all dejected if they're noobs. I'm not doing it right. So, but that's it. As far as the TPA videos that I did, uh, it was the opening of Scream Roller Coaster at Magic Mountain. That had more views than anything I ever did.
Really?
That had a couple million views.
Oh, wow.
On TPA. Had nothing to do with Halloween, so whop, whop. There's that answer. As far as the most watched Halloween videos, it would have been like the Knots Flow Through videos that I pioneered.
Yeah.
Many of them had probably 300,000-400,000. Some had 500,000 views, which is a lot.
That is, yeah.
But I mean, that's just because of the buildup of time and people watching them over and over and that kind of thing. But no, the number one video of all time on TPA was the opening of Scream at Magic Mountain. I wasn't even there for that. My friend Shay Foley was there. He shot it, and he put a really cheesy song called Scream If You Want to Go Faster to it, and everybody hated it and commented. But the great thing was, even if you make a negative comment, it messes with the algorithm, so it shows up in people's feeds or whatever. Yeah. And it had a couple million views.
Oh, wow.
So there you go. There's the answer. The number one TPA video of all time was Scream at Magic Mountain, not a haunt video.
I was expecting a haunt one, but it's okay.
Yes.
It's okay. What are some of the haunts Midsummer Scream attendees can expect to experience this year in the Hall of Shadows? And without picking favorites, what are you most looking forward to seeing this year?
Wow, the Hall of Shadows is so dynamic because it changes. Even the returning haunts that come back to us year after year, they change things up enough that it's always fresh and exciting. And basically, the Hall of Shadows is this huge, huge dark space within the Long Beach Convention Center, and it's kind of that's my sandbox, and it's kind of like the love letter to the haunt community here in Southern California, because I handpick who's going to be in the hall every year. And what happens is the year before, Eleonova and we spend all of the haunt season traveling around seeing gazillions of haunts, home haunts and everything.
Amazing.
And then we figure like, oh my God, that has to be in the Hall of Shadows.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like how far in advance that kind of goes. And so it's always great to see these things come to fruition in the Hall of Shadows, plucking them from people's driveways or whatever and bringing them to Long Beach. And that's always
magical.
exciting. That's really exciting.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times these home haunters, they'll see maybe, a couple hundred people coming to their haunts, visitors. And in the Hall of Shadows, they're going to have several thousand each day going through their haunt, which is really exciting.
It
and,
is.
and I'm really happy to give haunters that kind of platform and canvas to create on in the hall. So it's always great to see that. As far as what they can look forward to this year, one of the most special aspects of the hall this year is we have Lionsgate Studios.
Yeah.
They commissioned a walkthrough haunted attraction to be created.
Awesome.
And good friend John Cook with Plague Productions, he's actually created this maze. Oh. They're fabricating it right now in Georgia. They're going to pack it all in a semi-truck. It's going to travel 2,000 miles across country and be assembled in Long Beach, which is just mind-blowing.
That is mind-blowing.
Mind-blowing.
Cool. That's extra special.
So I think the fans are obviously really excited to see what that is.
Oh, yeah.
I've seen pictures of them in process, and it's going to be just as polished as anything that you'd find at Knott's or Universal.
Oh, wow.
And it's crazy that this is being done for one weekend at Midsummer Scream. I mean, it's nuts to me. So that's going to be great. Of course, we have quote unquote yard displays. The haunt with no name yet is going to be back again. That's always a favorite. I love what they do. Cal Haunts has a display this year. They're celebrating their 20th anniversary as an organization here in Southern California.
That's exciting.
And so they have got an Old West setup with a phantom train that has crashed through the wall of the station.
Oh, I love that.
And so that's going to be really, really cool. Santa Ana Haunt is bringing it with an all-new haunt this year called Hunting Grounds. Think kind of like a Hostel type storyline for that. But within that footprint, they're going to have a bar, which is the Happy Huntings Bar. And that's going to be great because guests can go in there. And there are interactive elements where you can mess with people that are going through the maze.
That's awesome.
From the bar. So that's
exciting.
a lot of fun. Like, number one, who doesn't like a good bar? And number two, who doesn't like a good bar while you can mess with other people? That's like the best thing ever, right? So that's going to be a lot of fun. The Decade Brigade's coming back again this year with amazing, lineup of shows they're going to do, including for the first time ever, they're going to do a Friday night show.
Okay.
At 9 p.m. on their runway. They're going to do a special show they created just for Friday night.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And so that's exciting.
Special.
That's going to be really, really cool for people to see. And then Fear Farm this year is done the entryway, which is Duskfall Hollow. And it's an Old West ghost town that you're going to enter Hall of Shadows through.
I love that.
So the whole theme of this year's Hall of Shadows is spirits and legends.
Yeah.
And so I figured, well, let's see. They want to do a ghost town. They're going to do the entryway. What better way to say spirits and legends than starting off with like dead gunslingers and Old West stuff. Like, we love that.
So excited for this.
So it's going to be a really great Hall of Shadows. And I say it every year that like the Hall of Shadows just gets better and better every year. But it does. Like Dretch Society is coming back with a Scooby-Doo maze.
Oh my
goodness. Who doesn't love Scooby-Doo, right? So that's going to be really fun. So no, it's going to be a really, really good time for everybody. So that's what you can look forward to. Hall of Shadows is my favorite part of Midsummer Scream. I'm a little biased.
Yep.
But it's fun because it captures the essence of what we love about Halloween.
Exactly. Yep. Well, Hall of Shadows, it's like a vibe. It's literally like when you were a kid on Halloween night in your costume, getting ready to go out trick-or-treating. That's what I feel like, in my 30s, like right when I'm in the doorway, like of the Hall of Shadows, about to go in there. I'm so excited to go through the walkthroughs and smell the fog in the air. And it's just, it's darker in there. It feels like that feeling of being a kid on Halloween night. Yeah. So I'm with you. It's my favorite part too.
It's exciting. Well, I get that feeling every year. So every year, towards the end of our install, we have a moment in the Hall of Shadows that's lights out.
Yeah.
And it's from that period on that all the lights in that hall go out. And that's when the haunters start tweaking their show lighting and all that stuff. But everybody cheers when that happens. And it always gives me chills because at that point, it's kind of like life has been breathed into the Hall of Shadows.
Yeah.
And you actually stand there for the first time looking around saying, oh, shit, we did this. This is great. This is what it's going to look like now every day with the lights off.
Yeah, and that's amazing.
Because it's very different, obviously, with the lights on,
Yeah.
But when the lights go out and all the facades are lit up and you're just standing there going, wow, we pulled it off again.
Yeah.
And it's going to be great. Can't wait to have bodies flowing into here because everybody comes in so excited to see what it's going to have every year.
Yeah.
that's my favorite moment every year
Yeah,
of
that just gave me
Midsummer.
goosebumps. It's like
Yeah,
such a vibe and such a
lights out
feeling.
is an
Yeah,
amazing moment. Yeah,
love that. So excited.
yeah.
Not only is the Hall of Shadows heavily influenced by the haunt community, but we can expect to see numerous haunt panels revealing more haunt attraction themes coming to the 2024 season, which we all look forward to hearing. If I'm not mistaken, you'll be mediating a haunt panel as well. Can you fill us in on what the panel is about and who we'll be hearing from during that panel?
Yeah, so every year from Midsummer, I put together a haunter panel because I'm very keen on keeping, the focus on Halloween at Midsummer. We have a million other things that are catering to the horror community, but I'm very, very laser focused on keeping Halloween front and center at Midsummer. And so I always put together kind of like a hot haunts for, that year or
Yeah.
whatever. And I just kind of wanted to mix it up a little bit this year. And I thought, it would be a cool vibe to have people that work full time in the haunt industry on haunted attractions, but the common thread being they all started as home haunters.
Yeah.
And there are some prolific haunters out there that started out that way, and I'm friends with them, and so it just seemed like it would be a no-brainer to me. And so I reached out. To a handful, and that includes Ted Doherty, of course, and Jeff Scheffelbein from Sinister Point, Jacob Larson from Pirates Cave. Um, I'm forgetting.
You got a good lineup. I
you
saw
know,
that
it's
sneak
stacked.
peek post
It's
on
stacked and
Instagram.
racked, is what it is.
Yeah.
And there's this new haunter, John Murdy.
Okay.
He's going to be doing it. Yeah, people may not have heard of him before, but they will. He's going to go places, I'm sure. But no, John, who of course the creative director of Universal's Halloween Horror Nights, he has for years talked about how he started out in his parents' garage, with home haunt stuff.
Yeah.
And so I was just like, hey, John, I'm doing this. I know you're doing your thing on stage, but I'd love to have you join our group so we could talk about. And he said yes. And I think it's really cool because obviously when John is there talking about what fans can expect at Horror Nights, that's the shtick. I mean, it's Horror Nights.
Yeah.
This allows John to talk about his origin story.
Yes.
Which he doesn't really get to do when he's up there talking about what he's doing at Horror Nights. And so we are going to get to see that. Guests are going to get to see pictures of John as a kid at his home haunt, doing this stuff.
That. Yeah.
So, that's going to also, the kind of conversation is going to be joined by Rick Boker, who does Fear Farm, who's doing the entrance to our Hall of Shadows. So the cool common thread is, even though they've gone on these different career paths, they all started at the same place.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a really exciting conversation to have.
Absolutely.
And that's going to be on our main stage, which is the Grand Ballroom. And so we do expect a pretty full house for that.
Yeah.
And the nice thing about that, though, is just super not intimidating to me because I've known these guys for years, decades, a lot of these guys.
Yeah.
And so it's just going to be a really cool, intimate conversation with people that are friends of mine first. And then, they happen to work in the haunt industry. And I think that the people that are there, the fans, are really going to vibe on that. And really,
100%.
To me, it just makes it so much better when you are a host of a panel and you happen to know the people that you're interviewing and talking to. Because it really, at that point, it becomes a conversation.
Yeah, for sure.
It becomes a conversation. You have 30 seconds of, holy shit, when you walk out and there's the sea of people out there, right?
Yeah.
But that all just rapidly melts away.
Yeah.
The minute you start talking and joking, it melts away. And what unfolds then for the next hour is a really cool conversation, and what I think is going to be definitely one of the highlights of the weekend for haunt fans that are in attendance.
Yeah, and it's a very inspirational panel too, I'm sure, to people who dream about doing this or getting started themselves. So I'm really excited to hear that panel. I will be there.
It's going to be great. I'll be there too.
Yes.
So yeah, it's going to be great.
All right, so as we come to an end of this interview, I wanted to play a little game of this or that. So I'm going to say two different things and just rapid fire, shatter the cannon. You have to pick one or the other.
Okay.
Okay, this is totally for fun.
Okay.
Let's see if any of them get you stuck.
All right.
All right, here we go. Scented fog juice or regular fog scent?
Regular fog scent.
Candy corn or chocolate?
Chocolate.
White chocolate, white chocolate pumpkin Reese's or regular pumpkin-shaped Reese's peanut butter cups?
Wait. Oh, wait. Okay. And then suddenly it's not so rapid.
Yeah.
So you're saying white chocolate Reese's Pumpkins versus regular Reese's
Yes.
Pumpkins?
Yep.
Regular Reese's Pumpkins.
Yep. All right. Universal Studios Hollywood Horror Nights or Not Scary Farm?
Wow. Way to put me on the spot. What I'm trying to think of what's a midsummer answer. But you know what? I grew up with Not Scary Farm.
Okay.
So, I mean, I love everybody that works on the Universal Horror Nights, but Knott's is part of my DNA and it's what I grew up on. So we're going to go with Scary
The
Farm.
love is there, but your childhood was not
You're
Scary
never
Farm.
going to beat Ghost Town
Yeah.
at Halloween. Sorry. That's just the way it is.
I get it. Okay. Paranormals or slashers?
Slashers.
Okay. Movie theaters or drive-ins?
Movie theater.
Apple pie or pumpkin pie?
Pumpkin pie.
Ghost Town or Carnival Boardwalk?
Ghost Town. Sorry, clowns.
Mass monsters or special effects airbrush monsters?
Masked monsters. Does that count with prosthetics too? Because you can kind of talk with prosthetics on.
I know. I was counting the prosthetics with the special effects airbrush monsters, but yeah, I was counting it in that category.
God, that's so hard because you could have the most brilliant prosthetics on and just suck as a monster, and you could have the most amazing airbrushed face and be amazing as much. So it depends on the person, but I'm going to say probably prosthetic, just because I grew up in the '70s and we all had Don Post masks, and that's my final answer. Masks.
Okay, love it. '70s horror or '80s horror?
Wow. Again, so super not rapid. Well, my favorite horror film of all time is Carpenter's '78 Halloween, so it's got to be that. But God knows I grew up on Freddy too. But we're gonna go with '70s, I guess.
All right. Pumpkin spice flavor or apple cider flavor?
Ooh, pumpkin spice. Until I get sick of it, then we'll go with apple cider the rest of the year.
Good answer. I get that.
I'm kind of breaking the rules.
Pumpkin spice comes in so early, so I think by the time we get to October, apple cider is kind of refreshing. Yeah. I get it. All right. Los Angeles Haunted Hayride or Queen Mary's Dark Harbor?
Oh my God. We're going to go with Dark Harbor.
All right. Dracula or the Wolfman?
Wolfman, 100%.
All right. Well, I'm glad the last one was an easy one for you.
It's I love them all. Grew up on all of them, but I have always been a Wolfman kid.
All right. Cool. Well, you're out of the fire for the for the this or that. So thank you for putting up with that.
You bet.
Thank you so much again for taking the time to sit down and talk spooks with me today. Can you share with all the boils and ghouls tuning in the social plugs for Midsummer Scream?
Sure. It's at Midsummer Scream.
Nice
oddly enough, right?
Yeah.
On Instagram and on Facebook. And
Perfect.
we're just excited to see everybody this year, July 26th through 28th in Long Beach, California. And it's going to be fun. So come on down and have a good spooky weekend with us. And that's it. And that's the gateway to Halloween 2024. Here we go.
Yep. It kicks off the spooky season and it's a spooktacular time. I could speak from experience and I'm looking forward to it this year. So
awesome.
Thank you so much again.
Hey, my pleasure. Happy Halloween early, everybody.
Yep. Happy spooky season.